Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming my most requested video ever, a tour of everything I bought for 70,000 euros in rural Italy. Now I've been a bit reluctant about filming this video for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because I just don't think this time of year does justice to the property. The trees are all bare, I've got no produce growing, and it's all just a little bit dull and grey. And secondly, as you may know, I've worked in prisons for many years, and so I have this niggling over-paranoia about security and not giving away too much personal information. But I've decided there's probably a way I can film without giving my exact location away. So without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the tour, and then we can have a catch up and I'll tell you a little bit more about the buying process and why I think this property was worth every penny I paid. Right, so coming up from the driveway, the first thing you come to is this self-contained annex, which is a real bonus. I used this as an Airbnb for my first summer here, and to be honest, it was completely fully booked, but it was just a bit too much to take on by myself, plus the fees were really high, and then I got the piggies, so that was the end of that really. But this is living space. And that's a sofa bed there, so in theory you could have a third person, but they'd have to be quite small because it's one of those click-clack ones. And then coming into here is the bedroom, which is fairly basic, just wardrobe, chair, bedside tables. And then here in the living area, there's this fabulous stove, which really I haven't used as much as I ought to. It's wood fired, and the only thing I've done in it actually was make crisps, which were absolutely delicious, but I definitely need to use that a little bit more. And then coming through here, you get to the bathroom, which by rural Italian standards is fairly modern, but it's starting to look a little bit tired. So there's a little bit of rust on the shower. And so I probably wouldn't have any paying guests here at the moment. And then coming through here, you get to the kitchen. As you can see, you do get lots of nice natural light coming in here, even though the shutters are half closed. So just a little table for two, fridge, cooker, sink, all the usual bits and pieces. Then as you come out, there's a little garden to the left, which used to be reserved for guests, and I had a pizza oven out here too at the time. These are all beautiful fruit trees. I've got two types of plum, apricots, pomegranates and quince, but obviously at this time of year they look a little bit sad. However, this garden does have a really beautiful view over the snow-capped mountains, which I will try and zoom in for you. And then over here is where we put in the hot tub and the cinema screen, which I appreciate looks very ugly at the moment because there's no foliage. So I'm going to link for you the video I did on the olive harvest, and you'll be able to see it in all its autumn splendour. There's also another lovely mountain view from the other side. Just walking around to the back of the annex, you come to this outdoor kitchen area, which is really, really handy. At the moment, I've got my washing machine in here until I move that inside, and that was actually left by the previous owners, which was really handy. And I've also purchased since then a tumble dryer, which is making a lot of noise, so I'm hoping you can't hear it too much. And then it's got some cupboard space. It's got a really deep sink, which I use to wash the dog and sometimes the other animals. And then it's got this kind of barbecue area. And the best part is this beautiful antique bread oven, which we use quite regularly now that we've got it all cleaned out. And then I also use it just at the moment to store my rotavator because it's quite an expensive piece of equipment, so I like to have a room where I can lock it up. This is also super handy. This is a massive gas hob which I use to make my passata, my pasta sauce. So if you didn't catch my last video on that, I will link it here. And there is an ordinary oven as well, which I've never had the need to use, and it's just got my last season's onions stored on top of it at the moment. And then coming from the annex, you get to this enormous covered garage space, which originally I intended to turn into an outdoor cinema, but since we put the screen up where the hot tub is, it really didn't seem worth it. So it's just another place that collects junk, unfortunately. You probably won't believe me when I say this is 100 times better than it was, because the previous owners just left absolutely everything, which is quite common when you buy a place in Italy. And there aren't any tips around here, and it's very hard to find anyone who will clear things. So it can be very difficult to get rid of stuff you don't want. Then moving on through here, you come to an area that I haven't really done anything with yet, but there are a few other olive trees, and these produce a slightly different kind of olive, the type that you can pick and put into salted water and change over time to cure them. And then this area in here, which is fairly chaotic, is a massive store of wood that was left to me. So this is after depleting it for 2 years. There's still an enormous amount of wood for our fires. And then over here is where the pigs and chickens live, or I should say is where they sleep, because as you've probably established, they have free reign of everywhere except the olive grove. So they do have quite a bit of space. They've got a couple of rooms to the left there, a couple to the right, which is where the chickens used to sleep, but over the last few days I've noticed they won't sleep together anymore and they all sleep in separate rooms. And then that little room there is where the piggies snuggle up and sleep together. So this is hands down my favourite part of the property, where the olive grove starts. I have around 100 trees in total, so here you can see the 2 rows, and then it just widens out a little bit into 3 a little bit later on. But while I'm up here, I want to show you the place where I would ideally love to have a swimming pool at some point. So I've earmarked this land. Obviously it won't be for quite some years yet because I need to save up, but I think this is the perfect spot because it's got the beautiful view of the mountains in front, and then you've got the olive trees to the left, and then from the other end of the pool you'll see this other beautiful mountain which is snow-capped at the moment, so I'm not sure you can make it out. It's probably just a white shadow, but I think this is the ideal location. Just in front of that mountain view, you can see my oldest row of olive trees. I just think they are absolutely beautiful. And then when you get to the bottom, you're greeted with another fantastic view. Just look at this. If you can make out the yellow and white barrels over there, that's one of the many local olive presses. This huge piece of land here is currently not being used, and I think I would love to have some vines here, which I know would be a lot of work, but I think the payoff would be worth it. If not, I may just rent it out to somebody else to grow whatever they want there. So the land goes right to the bottom there until that little incline that you can see, but I just wanted to take you over here to another view that I absolutely love. And this is one of the reasons I enjoy doing the olive harvest so much, because you are literally spoilt from every corner with fantastic views. And on a sunny day like this, you can't help but think, God, I am so lucky to have this. Now all of this is the land I set aside to grow my veggies every year. I haven't planted them yet, of course, but that's my job for this month. But I'll need to rotivate this land first because it's quite grassy at the moment. Now coming back towards the main house is where the fun begins. Now you knew there had to be a catch because nothing's ever straightforward in Italy, but the kitchen is actually accessed via an outside door. Now in the owner's defence, they would have had a small kitchen within the main house and then this would have just been used for big family gatherings, but because it's such a lovely space, I didn't really want to have two separate kitchens. So at the moment I'm going outside every time I need to use the kitchen. It had a gas hob already, plus air conditioning and a TV, which is really handy. Most of the units were already here. I built these white ones here. They're just from IKEA, and another one here because I have so much kitchen stuff. You know I'm obsessed with cooking, and I also collect Emma Bridgewater, which you've probably seen in some of my videos, and Smeg as well, so I do have an awful lot of kitchen equipment. And do ignore the decorations. We are halfway between Valentine's Day and dog's birthday here, so there's lots of decorations out. This is the aircon unit that you've just seen at the end of the kitchen, and then just past this pipe here, this piece of wall has a shed behind it which inexplicably doesn't belong to me but belongs to somebody else who lives in this kind of courtyard area. And then this is the wall to my house, so you can't actually knock through from the house to the kitchen, which is very inconvenient. I have verbally agreed with them that I'm going to buy the shed so that I can do the work, but they live in Bologna and they don't come back very often, so it's going to be a very slow process. And I've lived like this for nearly 2 years and it's not been too bad, apart from obviously during cold and wet weather, but I would like to get it sorted as soon as possible. And if that doesn't work out, then I'm going to build some kind of conservatory to join the kitchen to the main house. So now coming into the main house, this is probably the ugliest part of the house, but because I want to knock through a wall, there's no point in me really doing anything with it. This is where the kitchen would have been. And in Italy, when you buy a house, it's very common for them to take the kitchen with them, which is something you might not be familiar with in your country. So moving on through to the living space, I find it a really lovely, cozy area. I'm so lucky to have all of that firewood. It means that we can have the fire lit most days, and we do in the winter. Obviously we've got some Valentine's decorations in here as well. Over here there was a dining table when I moved in, but since I don't have a kitchen in the main house and I don't really intend to carry food over from the big kitchen, I just decided to extend the living area slightly and have a little reading corner. And I do also have central heating, which isn't very common in a lot of the houses in this area. Plus the boiler in here and the boiler in the annex were both pretty new, so I've been very lucky there. The stairs are a little bit of a worry for me because I'm concerned that the dog might fall through the gap. So I've just added some of those stick-on fabric tiles, which will give her something to grip onto a little bit more. But I do still worry about her a little bit. Right, time to go upstairs. So first up we have the master bedroom. It's not an enormous room, but it suits me just fine, and it kind of makes up for it by having this gorgeous balcony, and it's just so hard not to be happy when you've got this view. Then just to the right here, this was a single bedroom when I moved in, even though it's very dinky, and now it's just my little office space. I'm not really a massive desk worker, but I have to say I do enjoy looking out at this gorgeous view. And then back out to the hallway, and to the right is the bathroom, which you may have seen in a previous video. I have actually done. That's the main big expense I've had since moving in. And it's a very dinky space, so I've actually had the bath taken out and just had a shower put in instead, which is one of the reasons I got the hot tub, so I wasn't missing out too much. But I will try and link the video so you can see what it looked like before. Obviously, as you probably know as well, I'm having all of these doors taken off, sanded down and repainted, so they won't be this ugly for much longer. Okay, final room of the house, another room I've done absolutely nothing with, but it's a good size double bedroom. It has one of those trestle beds at the moment, which is a single bed with another one that you pull out underneath, which makes it enormous. So when I get round to decorating, I will definitely just put a normal double bed in, and it will give the room a lot more space. As always, I haven't bought any of the furniture. It was already here, including a TV. And actually, I forgot to say, I inherited about 4 or 5 TV sets here. Most of them modern, unlike this one. So that was really handy as well. But this room's a really decent size. It's got nice high ceilings. It just needs a good bit of decorating. So there you have it. I hope you found that interesting and that it gave you a bit of a clearer idea of what you might be able to expect for your budget too. Obviously, these things are all about perspective, and I've had a few local people tell me they think I paid too much for the property, which is potentially the case. But coming from England, where house prices were so much higher, I really felt like I got a good deal. It does also depend on what your requirements are, of course, and I know that a lot of people in the community follow my channel because you're looking to retire here, and so you may have many, many more requirements than I did. Mine was simply that the place was livable, and by livable I mean it had central heating and no structural damage, and that was pretty much it. So you need to factor in the things that are important for you. I also wanted to have a quick chat with you about some of the factors that went into the purchase that for me made it really worthwhile and are nothing to do with the property or the land at all. So the day I came to view the house was a beautiful sunny day in February, and I remember getting closer and closer, and then at some point I turned around this curve and had the most beautiful view of a snow-capped mountain, and I just had a really good feeling about the place. Then as soon as I drove up the driveway, I had this weird sensation where all of my fears, stresses and worries just melted away, which is just something you can't really put a price on. Anyway, the estate agent was running late and the previous owner was there, so he agreed to take me around the land while we waited for her. And he explained all of the amazing produce he was growing. He described how to look after the olive trees, and he had so much wisdom to pass on to me that it just got me really enthused about buying the property. And in fact, before I even saw inside the house, I'd already made my decision that it didn't matter what it was like. I was having that place, and that was it. Luckily, the house turned out to be livable, as you've just seen, and as the overly enthusiastic person that I am, I put an offer in the same day, and fortunately it was accepted. But that's not where my experience with the previous owners ended. I was so lucky that from that moment they treated me like a member of their own family, and they invited me back to the house several times to have lunch with them, to meet their friends and family, and they sent me home every single time with masses and masses of wonderful produce. In addition to that, I had rented an Airbnb for a month, and that was due to come to an end, and I was desperate to move into the house, but there were a few issues to iron out with the local municipality, and they actually agreed to let me move in anyway, free of charge, until the house sale went through. So that's another thing that I just think counts for so much when you're dealing with people that make everything as easy as possible. On top of that, the previous owner even came back a few times after I'd moved in to show me everything to do with the land and teach me everything that he knew, imparting that wisdom to give me the best head start, because I'd never had any experience of looking after land before. And then finally, all of the furniture I needed was already here when I moved in, and not just the furniture but also all sorts of crockery and homewares. So while I was waiting for my belongings to be delivered from England, I had absolutely everything I needed to live comfortably here. Now, I appreciate that houses around here don't sell very quickly, and so I've gone into this with my eyes wide open that if I ever wanted to sell this property, it would probably take several years unless I were lucky enough to find another expat or repat like me that wanted to buy it. However, I really want to stay here forever if possible, so I know that I'm going to have to work at this over the next 10 to 15 years to make it my perfect home with swimming pool and vineyards and all, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Right, I'm going to leave this video here, but if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And on that note, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you in the community. Over the last few weeks and months, I feel like I've really developed close relationships with a lot of you through your comments and people who've contacted me privately. So thank you so much. You make it all worthwhile. I'll see you again soon.